Hey, it's Ollie and welcome to this series of videos where I'm showing you different ways that I'm using my core study time every day to learn languages. And in this video I'm going to talk about vocabulary and exactly what I do every day to increase my vocabulary, because obviously, learning new words and phrases is one of the most important things about learning a new language. Now, vocabulary is a really complex topic, and it's definitely true that we learn vocabulary in lots of different ways, from lots of different places. But what I'm really trying to do in the way that I study is kind of systematize it and come up with a reliable way of learning vocabulary that I can repeat every single day, so that I know that I've got a system of increasing my vocabulary and learning more stuff all the time. That's what I'm really interested in. Now, when I'm learning a language, there are typically two major sources of new vocabulary for me. Okay, so let's go over here and I'll show you what they are. Now, the first place that I'll learn a lot of new words and phrases from is study. Okay, so we've got textbooks, CDs, maybe software or things online. Whatever you use to study, you're going to get a bunch of new vocabulary from that. And what I always do is study and then record that new vocabulary in my notebook. Okay, so that's number one. The second place that I typically get a lot of new vocabulary from is conversations. Okay, those of you who follow me will know that I place a big premium on speaking with other people, language exchange, talking with your tutor. And whenever you sit down and speak your target language, you come up with a lot of new vocabulary. And I always record all of that stuff in my notebook as well. Now, what happens with a combination of these two things is, after studying for a while, every time you sit down and study, you end up with a lot of stuff. Hundreds and hundreds, potentially, of new words and phrases. And so you've got to come up with a way of actually memorizing this, because it's too much for you to take in and learn. So what I do in the mornings when I'm studying is I will sit down, fresh, with an uncluttered mind, look at all of this stuff that I've learned and think, well, okay, what's the most important vocabulary? What do I really want to learn from all of this? And I will take that, and what I'll do is I will then transfer it into a new notebook. Now, this is not my notebook, this is just a piece of paper, but I typically have a vocabulary notebook, and what I like to do is to categorize it. So I have, for example, a bit on maybe words for describing places, words for describing the weather, words for maybe just a list of useful verbs, things for describing people. I have many, many different categories. And I will take the most important words and phrases that I've studied recently, and I'll say, right, these are the ones I want to learn. And I might go for, I kind of like to go for between 8 to 12 a day, somewhere between 8 and 12. And I'll transfer those into my vocabulary notebook. So what I've done up to this point is kind of the preparation work. I've sat down quietly and I've decided, right, this is the stuff that I really want to learn. And I've put it here into my little notebook. But really, that's only the beginning, because what you've then got to do is actually come up with a way of remembering it. Most people will stop there. They'll write down, they'll fill up their notebook with loads of stuff, but they won't actually take the next step and try to memorize all this stuff. So what I really use my core study time for, after doing this preparation work, is coming up with ways of actually memorizing the stuff, so that the stuff that I put in here that I've decided is really, really important and that I want to learn at this stage actually goes into my memory, and I've actually got a way to remember it. All right, so let me show you a little example of what I do. Now, I remember recently I was talking to my tutor in Cantonese, and this great word came up, which was "yuyin gaowun," which means language exchange in Cantonese. So I came up with this word, and I immediately wrote it down into my notebook, and then I decided it was an important word to learn, so I transferred it across to my notebook. Now, this is the word in Cantonese, and it was quite difficult to, I wasn't sure, I couldn't remember it immediately. Now, the first bit is easy, yuyin, which means language, and then gaowun, which means, literally it means kind of an exchange. But I didn't know this at the time, so I had to figure out a way of remembering this whole thing. Now, I knew the first bit, yuyin, which that's easy, and I had to figure out how to remember gaowun. Now, really, there's no golden rule for how to do this. You've just got to figure out, when you've got a word that you don't know, you just have to figure out a way of remembering it. And so for me, this word here, gao, sounds a bit like gao as in gaosu, which means to teach. And this word here, wun, sounds a bit like wun, which means bowl. All right, so I've got this kind of crazy thing going on where this word sounds a bit like teach, and this word here sounds a bit like bowl. And so I came up with this weird imagery of like this bowl, and people speaking languages and teaching each other whilst kind of going around in this crazy bowl. But this is kind of a nice little language exchange image, don't you think? And this is, as I was thinking about how I was going to remember this word, this is the image that kept coming back to me, this bowl with people speaking languages and going all around. So, it's kind of crazy, but that's what worked for me to remember this particular word, which again is language exchange in Cantonese. And so really this is the core of what I'm doing in this study time, to remember and memorize these words that I've decided are so important. And so by doing this, what you've kind of given yourself is like a memory anchor for new vocabulary, so that when you're trying to remember what a word is, you're not just kind of trying to dredge it up from nothing. You've actually got some kind of mental imagery to anchor onto, and that helps you recall the word and bring it back. All right, so that's how I use a lot of my course study time for remembering vocabulary. I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.